in the state of New Jersey, you can't have too much money. And in this case, it comes in the form of excess surplus. When the end of budget operations come and you've stacked up all your revenues, stacked up all your expenditures, and you looked at what's left over, that will make its way into fund balance. And the state puts a limit on that. It was 4% of operating expenses, plus some exceptions for certain types of state aid that you don't know about it until the state tells you what it is. This is going to be a big change for the fiscal year you're in now, because that 4% just went back down to 2%. So you have your 4% of your operating expenses, plus things like extraordinary special education cost aid, which I always look at as a double-edged sword, because if you have that, you have what comes with it, and those are probably big special education costs. You also those are going to be your primary things that are going to make up your ending balance, and your ending unrestricted balance, which I have as 1,434,230. So anything going over that's not reserved for something, or not encumbered for something, and when we think encumbrances, we think about those purchase orders we put in, where we haven't received the goods yet, but we've still committed the funds for it. Once we've stacked all those up, anything past that is considered excess surplus, and that excess surplus automatically goes back to the taxpayer. Not in the current budget year you're in, but the budget year you're planning afterwards. Any questions, comments? Because we're going to drill down on surplus a bit more further in our conversation. Okay, we've set up some charts for everyone, and you may be getting a sense of deja vu looking at the first one, because it's a carbon copy of what was talked about during the budget presentation. When we look at our pie chart at the top, most of it, and I see that big green wedge there, is going to be in the form of a tax levy. And it's a bit of a 1-2 punch. Big punch being the tax levy, and the little punch, or our jab, our state aid. And that's primarily going to come in the form of regular state aid amounts that are given to all school districts, depending on enrollment, rateable, and things of that nature. Federal sources, I want to make sure that red wedge is highlighted, because it'll be high probably again this year that we're in now, and then it's going to start ticking down as those federal ESSER and ARP ESSER funds are spent. With miscellaneous income being things like the building use rental and stuff of that nature that we talked about earlier in our conversation. What we wanted to do right below that is line up the tax rates for the three tax components of the municipality. Two things you can't control, and one thing you can. Green and purple represent the municipality and the county respectively. The blue line towards the top is what the school district's tax rate is. And as we can see, things are relatively steady. Everybody takes a dive in 2020, which that was the effect of a revaluation. And things are relatively steady tax-wise for this district. We don't see a lot of peaks and valleys on this one, which is what you're really looking to try and do. Any questions, comments, concerns before we move on to expenditures?
Can I ask about the yellow color? It says miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous.
Is that some kind of donation, or what kind of money?
Sometimes we get revenues in the general fund for things that aren't taxes and aren't state aid. And that's what that category is going to be. So I'm going to cheat, because I have my book tonight. I've got my big book, Insurance Cure for Insomnia. And we're going to flip over to Exhibit C1 in our books, page 1 of 8, and we've got rents and royalties, unrestricted miscellaneous revenues in the general fund. We also have a transfer in from a fund that was closed out during this and an enterprise fund that was closed out. I believe it was Latchkey Kid program. those things are going to stack up to give us our miscellaneous amount. Any other questions, comments on revenue before I take a moment to talk about expenditures? Okay. Looking at expenditures, and I'm gonna work from top to bottom here. I'm gonna look at my bar chart first. My expectation, no matter where I go and no matter what I do, I'm going to expect this pie chart to be filled with wedges that are green, blue, purple, and orange. That's going to be the regular instruction, tuition, student instruction, related services, employee benefits, and the special revenue fund. And I'm happy to say my expectations been met. 2/3 to 3/4 of this pie easily with these categories. Our regular instruction being our teachers, our teachers and instructional costs, one-on-one with the kids. Our tuition costs for students we have to send out of the building. Our student and instruction related services, our guidance counselors, nurses, child study team, the library, all that stuff goes into that bucket. Employee benefits, and the big enchilada there is going to be our health benefits. And our special revenue fund, which as we talked about earlier, is enjoying the federal stimulus funds. That we can expect for this year, probably next year some, and then that well is going to dry up for some of those funding streams. Now, not only am I gonna do that, I'm gonna stack these up right below on the bottom, on our bar charts. And I'm going to see how consistent we are from year in and year out. And I'm seeing things being pretty steady. Bit of a dip in green. Blue is pretty steady. And purple, a little bit of a dip, but I know that purple's gonna be coming right back up this coming up year once health benefits figure in their increase and get their additional, and get their 12 months back. Any questions, comments?
Why doesn't this expenditures line up with the first page that was provided, with a total of 28.3 million before capital outlays? This chart suggests
Okay.
22 million.
Okay, I leave capital outlay off of this.
Yeah, I'm excluding that as well.
Yeah, I leave capital outlay off of this because capital outlay can change so much from year to year. Our capital needs are going to, we kind of have to address them piecemeal by each budget year. We kind of know what the personnel is gonna be, year to year to year to year, and that's a pretty effective benchmark. Same thing with, things like, our benefits. But with capital outlay, you could do something for say 100,000
Yeah.
one year and 700,000.
I'm excluding capital outlays. So excluding capital outlays, this first page has 28.3 million in expenses,
Mhm.
whereas this bottom half added together shows just north of 20 million. And I'm just trying to understand the difference.
We have something here, and forgive me, I put my stack down. So are we trying to get to $29 million from here, or?
28 and change.
28 and change, so what's on here that's not on here? So I did do the math on this, and it did work before I left. Unfortunately, oh, you found a blooper on this, and but you have my apologies. 1 second, please. We have a blooper on our presentation. We are not including, unfortunately, we did not include the special education instructional costs on this.
Okay,
Apologies for the oversight, and thank you for picking that up.
sure, no worries.
And just to, if we go to exhibit C1 of the audit report, our total special education costs are 2.240 million. And our other, we also have other instructional costs, such as bilingual, basic skills, and things like that. So I believe that's gonna make up your difference.
The 6 million in difference.
Going off the top of my head without having my calculator here. But again, sorry about the oversight, and thank you for picking that up. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm talking about surplus. We have one more pie chart to look at. This time I'm going to go from the bottom up. And what we're gonna do is, as the funds go from green to blue, they're going to be less restricted. So the general fund restricted surplus, 1.43 million. And excess surplus, 823 million. So what's happening here is there was an excess surplus in the 2020-2021 fiscal, in the 2020-2021 fiscal year. The second the calendar went from June 30th to July 1st, that money was gone, because that money automatically populates your budget. So that's going to be, that's going to offset appropriations and populate automatically as a revenue. Now, the result of this current year's operations, 21-22, resulted in an $823,673 excess surplus. That means that this money automatically populated in your 2023-2024 budget as it was being prepared. General fund capital reserve, 2,555,286. That represents funds that are in your that represents reserve fund balance that are eligible for costs in your long-range facility plan for your capital needs. The maintenance reserve, 841.69. Those are eligible for your costs in your comprehensive maintenance plan for your school building required maintenance programs. You are self-insured for unemployment claims insurance, so a little bit of fund balance goes to that. Your committed fund balance, your encumbrances are about $757,000. A little bit of assigned fund balance, and that was also used to offset budget tax increases, so that also went into the pot when the 2022-2023 budget was created. In addition to that, the general fund, we have the last little bit being the general fund unassigned fund balance is 1.3 million. Now there is a difference between that number and the number I gave you earlier, and that's due to the state aid payment and when it's recognized. Your regular state aid payment comes in for a GAAP purpose. We can't realize the revenue until we physically get it in our hands. So fund balance is going to be a little bit less there than it was outlined earlier in our presentation. Once I do that, I'm going to stack the numbers up top. And as we can see, the dark green line, the increases are primarily in the dark green lines, and they're primarily going to be in the excess surplus. That's going to come back into the form of tax relief for the taxpayers. Also, a little bit more of that for the capital reserve and the maintenance reserve. And as we get to the lighter blue shades, a little bit of committed fund balance. That was primarily for capital contracts that were awarded that were going on during the summer. And the last light blue piece is going to be our unassigned fund balance. So things have gone up for the district, and the catalyst for that is going to be going from 2% of expenditures to 4% of expenditures. And as we said earlier, let's try not to get used to that, because that will not much longer be the case. Any questions, comments before we move on?
I just have a question in regards to the funds going back to the taxpayer. Those
Yes.
are funds that are not used. They wouldn't go to the reserve for future use. If I could just have some clarity as to why the
what happens is, in the state of New Jersey, unfortunately, you can't have too much, and I said that at the outset of our conversation.
Okay.
And, you're limited as to, what you want to put into you do a motion in June, I believe, to put money into your maintenance and your capital reserves, based on what you project your, exit, what your, funds are going to be.
So to use it or lose it, okay.
In our closeout meeting in the month of June, our second June meeting, we will always put in, any anticipated excess funds. Otherwise, we
Okay.
forfeit those
Okay,
funds.
got it. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss, I know you have a lengthy presentation, but for the purposes of our corrective action plan and or any recommendations, repeat findings, do you wanna just try to navigate those waters a little bit for the board's edification, if you don't mind?
Yes, now's gonna be the next part of my conversation.
Excellent, thank you, sir.
Our treasurer would from them. My contact information is right on there too, if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, always happy to. Now, and what we do is, we come out and we look at everything, from payroll books to vouchers, to enrollment stuff, to bank statements. We look at everything, we ask tons of questions. The results of the audit are included in your auditor's report to management, which I have a page here. And I'm gonna go down the recommendations with the board one at a time. We have 6 recommendations. Recommendation number 1, the state of New Jersey requires certain signatures to be on board checks. When I say board checks, mainly your warrant or your warrant account, basically the big checking account. And it's gotta be the board president, the board secretary, and the superintendent or treasurer of school monies. So we saw that wasn't being done, and we put in a recommendation to do that. We wanna make sure that all federal form I-9s are available for are on file for employees. We wanna make sure that all minutes of board meetings are signed physically by the board secretary. And as a suggestion, it would also be a good idea to have the board president also sign the minutes. Should maintain a general ledger for the food service account. Now, I've said it a couple times, and I'll say it one more time. You can't have too much money in the state of New Jersey. And you can also have too much money in the state of New Jersey in your food service cafeteria fund. And what's called is net cash resources. And a lot of school districts have this problem in New Jersey, primarily because of the effect of federal money the federal government has had in essentially paying for everybody's lunch over the last 2 years. This has resulted in excess cash resources for most school districts, and Palisades Park is no different. Now, there was a recommendation in the 2020-2021 audit for excess net cash resources. That was still the case this year, although the district's making efforts to spend it down, and we want to be a continuing effort to spend that cash down to what the appropriate level is according to the state of New Jersey. And it's a state-imposed requirement. The last recommendation is to make sure that students listed as low income in the student reporting system are supported by a free reduced lunch application or a direct certification verification. We had a couple of minor suggestions to management. Making sure receiving signatures are clearly indicated on all vouchers. Nothing major, just had a couple of misses on that one. Tracking of balances in the student aid account used for scholarships, just to make sure that all the money coming in is being tracked separately. And just to make sure the athletic director is approving all disbursements from that bank account. That being said, those are the results of our audit. Be happy to take any more questions, comments, concerns.
John, on behalf of the board, before there are any questions, I just want to applaud you and your team. I know you guys came in, we put you in our conference room. Welcome to the garage. We tried to make it as hospitable as possible. Thank you, really. There were many of the recommendations we've already implemented. I promise you, like these are areas that we seek to improve our day-to-day operations. We are already improving. And I commend you and your team for your efforts. Thank you.
I'll be happy to take any other questions, comments, concerns from the board. So with all that, thank you so much for your for your time,
Thank you for
everyone.
being
My
here.
company, my
Thank
bad.
Greatly appreciate it. My contact information is available. Have a great night, all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Okay, next one, report of the board attorney, Mr. McCann.
Yeah, I have no
Anything?
report. I have no report.
Okay, thank you anyway. So, now I'm going to move on to approval of board, minutes. The first one, approval of board minutes for the, December 2022, thank you, regular meeting minutes, okay? And, may I have a motion on that, resolution?
I make a motion for approval?
Second,
Any discussion?
you mean the minute of, oh, what
December.
minute? You mean December? December?
December 15th?
Okay.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yunmin,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Helen John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes.
Rebecca Lee. Oh, no, she's not here. Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Okay, thank you. Second one would be a resolution for the March 15, 2023, regular meeting, minutes.
I make a motion for approval?
Second.
Any, yes, discussion.
I don't know whether, I'm not sure, but, on March 15th, we discussed about the restroom repairment, but there is nothing mentioned in the minutes, so it gotta be included in the minutes.
You mean, it was on March 15th, do you remember that we were talking about? Does anyone remember?
So I know there was a discussion of it. Again, I think this becomes one of those matters, Mr. McCann, if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, just as a factual matter, I recall, you talking about the restroom repair. When
Yeah,
it was,
even the audience made some comment about that, but there's nothing in the minutes on the March 15th. So
okay,
it gotta be included.
I think we need to establish what exactly must be memorialized in the minutes. Otherwise, every
Right.
month, we might have an issue of what's excluded and what's not.
fine. So, as a general principle, what's included in the minutes is, the minutes are a summary of the meeting. It's not a verbatim, record of, word for word of what's included. But I think what you're referring to tonight is the subject matter, you're not suggesting something that's word for word. So something like that probably should be included in the minutes. And so it's simply a corrective action that requires, action by the board. So again, you're talking about a general topic, and if it's not in there, we should include it, as opposed to, specific word for word.
We're talking about the restroom behind us.
Yes.
Alex,
Not only this,
I-
the laboratory was not in good, were not in good condition, that's what I talked about, and we discussed about it.
Right.
I don't remember all the details exactly, but we discussed, but there was nothing in the
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
So we could take corrective action now, if, with the president requesting a motion, to amend the minutes of the March 15th, 2023 minutes to include the topic, that, the superintendent discussed the improvements of the restroom.
Early childhood center restrooms.
Yes.
And I also recall mentioning that that is an underground sewer concern, that we would have to very likely break concrete to the sewer line onto First Street. So this is a major undertaking that we are not neglecting. I know I spoke to this. We've had plumbers in, we've had cameras put into those facilities. I can shut down the building, but
whole section.
It's literally all of this, right, Joe?
This will have to be closed.
We can memorialize it in the minutes, that's not a problem, that we had that discussion.
Yeah, and I think we should.
Is that what you were requesting, sir?
Yeah, at least, yeah, that's the fact that was discussed.
That was
That
discussed.
fact.
Alex?
Whatever the.
As per the attorney, I think we should,
Include in the minute.
we should accept the
Even though when
motion
we discussed.
with a contingency that there is a discussion of the early childhood center need of repair regarding the restroom facilities.
Okay, so, can I have a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
We have Agnieszka and Anthony.
Oh.
And we have. So any other discussion?
Any other discussion? If not, roll call please.
Yunmen,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
I'll recuse, I forgot to read it, sorry.
Alan
Sorry.
John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
No.
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin,
No.
okay, motion is approved.
Yeah, motion. Okay, third one will be a resolution for the March 27, 2023. There was a special meeting minutes. May I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second? Second. Any discussion? If not, roll call please.
Yunmen,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Alan John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes.
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin. Yeah.
Okay, now we are going to move on to committee appointments. We'll start with the finance, William Kim, please.
Number 1 and 2 are, we discussed with our auditors today, and it's to, accept the report and the corrective action plan. 3 is related to the
Excuse
special.
me, can you say a little louder because we are too long, okay?
Sure.
Too long distance, I can't hear you.
Number 1 and 2 relate to the audit report that Mr. Weiss described to us today, along with the corrective action plan that was described. So those 2 are to approve those. Number 3 is a SEMI, which is a Special Education Medicaid Initiative corrective action plan. I believe it's in your folders. It's the legal size sheet. 4 is for the approval of ESS Northeast. I believe those are for teachers, aides, and other staff members. 5 is for food service. 6, also student activity accounts that was provided in your folders. 7 and 8, Alex has provided us financial reports and budgetary items. 9 for transfers. 10, the payroll amounts are for March, $858,547.53, and $903,877.13. 11 is the bill list. You may notice it might be a little bit higher than normal. We had an extra week between meetings, if you would recall. We pushed our meeting for this one for the budget hearing. 12 is the final budget adoption that Alex and Dr. Cirillo presented to us today. 13, we've gone over the travel and related expense reimbursements. I believe it's reiterated here for 23 and 24, establishing 10,000 as the maximum travel amount for the school year. And we have expended $3,172.36 to date. 14 is the HVAC projects that we have ongoing for payments. 15, according to the auditor's report and corrective action plan, they require either the superintendent or the treasurer to be a signer, and we're making a motion to approve that. 16 is for staff workshops. We have a number of them, including Alex, Dr. Searle, and a board member, looks like. 17, clinical staffing for home care therapies. To approve the agreement. 18, we have 3 staff members for tuition reimbursement. I believe we have an $18,000 cap per year. And 19 and 20 relate to the fire at Lindbergh for remediation and air quality services.
Number 19, Mr. Kim, if we can just, for the purposes of accuracy, the company is not ProServe, it's Serve Pro. Serve Pro is the name of the company. On number 19. Thank you.
That's all.
It's listed as Search Pro, so it's Pro Serve.
Okay,
Yeah,
No,
Serve Pro.
I amended it.
Serve Pro, thank you, Alex.
Okay,
Ours
Search
was
Pro
wrong.
on-
20
on,
items.
Sorry.
Glad you gave us the wrong one. Nice job.
can I have a,
I'm glad we evaluate you.
can I have a motion?
I have
Mr.
taken-
Oh,
Sounds
you
like
did the second?
William made the motion. I'm sorry.
I have some question, yeah.
Hold on, in discussion, hold on.
Make a motion for
Second.
consent
I will second.
agenda
Okay.
1 through 20.
Any discussion? Then you can.
The item 4, approval of the ESS Northeast LIC.
Yes.
This company do like the teacher hiring consulting service. something
Not
like that.
teachers, more
Substitute.
for teacher aides,
Yes.
substitute teacher aides, nursing, or therapies,
Okay.
not teachers.
Okay, this contract is just from the July 1st of this year.
It's for
So,
next year.
For the next year.
Yes, sir.
This approval was made even last year?
No, this is a new
So
company
this
we
is
are
the
working
first
with.
time?
Yes, sir.
So, then, who did you use before, and is there any?
So we've used
change?
different companies, one of them is, ProCare Therapy. There are many providers out there, but it is hard to get qualified and, certified employees. This is a reputable company, we wanna get them approved by the board. It doesn't mean we are using them.
Okay.
We have to interview their candidates,
Mhm.
but the first step is to get them approved by the board.
Yeah, because this company, I checked all the minutes, previous minutes, and there was no record.
Yeah, we
of
never
this
used them before.
company,
They were
so
just-
it's
they're
a
new
brand
to us.
company, so I just wanted to check.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Good question.
And another, the item 15,
15,
we
yes, sir.
authorized the sign change.
Yes, sir.
It's just out of curiosity. In the March, okay, the signer, we assigned the signer to the
Board president.
board president. Now we are changing to you
No,
or
we are
together.
adding me.
Adding me.
So as Mr. Weiss said, it was never something, Mr. Weiss, the auditor who left, we need 3 signers on our checks.
Mhm.
The business administrator, Mr. Kondowski,
Mhm.
the board president, Ms. Min, and either the superintendent or the treasurer of school monies. We don't have a treasurer of school monies.
Mhm.
The board has to authorize me to be a signer on the checks.
Since we just did that in March, and
Yes.
now we are adding one more, so why didn't we know that in March?
We did not
I just curious.
have his recommendations at the time.
Oh, so
We did not have it.
so
Now we
this
are
is being
doing
done
it.
by his
That is
recommendation.
correct. That is correct.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Mr. Lim.
I just wondering whether there was any financial meetings in the past?
Yes.
Was-
Yesterday, what
It was
we,
yesterday? Because
we-
I just simply overlooked or not because so busy and,
it's okay.
because,
We met on Thursday of last week, I believe, to review the budget. And Tuesday, yesterday, we reviewed our finance committee.
you was sent to me, you
I
sent.
believe so.
Because,
I will double check.
Sure.
I don't wanna say your email address publicly.
Because during the texting, there's so many
I know.
emails coming in, so that I just wondered.
I hope you did not send me to spam. Did you send me to spam?
I just wanna check it
I
out.
will double check. Before we leave, I can double check,
Because,
but I'm,
This is
I
one-
saw his name.
they were
So
on
we
it.
were talking about.
We were worried about you. I thought you went on
Maybe
vacation.
busy for the tax return things. We were talking about.
Yeah, we sent you, I will double check, Mr. Lin. Before you leave, I can show you that I sent you the information.
Yeah, you're on the email.
Yeah.
It was?
Mhm, I checked.
So and whether the BOE members are eligible to get the bill list of every month?
Sure, Mr. Kondowski can share that in the folder.
I shared in the shared drive already.
It was in the shared shared drive for all the board members. Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion?
So number 5 is the food service.
Yes,
In my understanding, we have a 56% of the students are moving to the free and reduced lunch
Yes.
application.
yes.
So this number is still, that
So-
number, that percentage is counted this one, so before this corrective action.
So the corrective action, there were two items that Mr. Weiss spoke of specifically related to food service. The most important one on any audit is any repeat finding. Because if they told us last year you have this concern, and it's still there next year, that means you neglected to address the concern. Here is the problem. During COVID, as he mentioned, many school districts were virtual. Not much of your equipment in your kitchens were used, if any. We continue to receive funds from the federal government. We made a very honest attempt to repair our facilities, our restrooms specifically. We were advised we were not allowed to. Hence, we have surplus of funds. If your refrigerators, stoves are not broken, it's hard to spend money to replace them. When students are all receiving free lunch, it's hard to deny money that's coming in constantly during that time. I think this is a very common occurrence in all school districts. I can go on record and tell you, next year, we won't have a surplus in that account. I promise you. Bathrooms are gonna get fixed. Near the cafeterias, for the record. Don't get mad at me if the third floor bathrooms are not fixed yet.
Okay. So any discussion? If not, roll call please.
Yoon Min,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Helen John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes?
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be Building and Ground Committee, Anthony Kim.
Anthony, before you speak to that, I know I spoke and I just wanna clarify for the public, because the number one is at Lindbergh Elementary School. I spoke to the PTA president today. I also spoke to Ms. Paprada, who's in the audience today, who's an active member of the PTA. There's a very good chance that this event will not take place at Lindbergh School due to the emergency that just took place. We are either going to relocate to the high school cafeteria, or we are looking at a rescheduled date, not this weekend at Lindbergh. I think, and Mr. McCann, if you can advise us, how should we move on this resolution? Because I cannot guarantee that the air quality test on Friday is going to be acceptable for Saturday's event. So we are looking to relocate potentially to the high school cafeteria, or a change of date at Lindbergh School.
Okay, so, as with any resolution, emergencies are always a factor, okay? You can essentially leave it like that, which I would have no problem with, because, but given that it's a known emergency, what I would recommend is you could leave it and just add the words in the alternative, a different site may be chosen.
If the board's okay with that?
May be chosen at the discretion of the superintendent.
Alex, if you can then update this and reflect it in the minutes. I cannot go on record tonight and ensure that we are using the Lindbergh School cafeteria on Saturday. What I can tell you is, so long that the high school cafeteria is not in use on Saturday, that is a very possible alternative. Otherwise, we are looking at next week.
But that was approved a few months ago, so it was brought back because of that.
The certificate of liability was not in hand, so we needed insurance was expired, so we needed an updated one, Ms. Chung. But now with everything happening at Lindbergh, I need to probably relocate this. So I think the resolution, as I mentioned,
Here's how I.
should reflect the change.
So what I would add in the language is, I leave it as you have it, including the parentheses with the certificate of I would say alternatively, at the discretion of the superintendent, in consultation with the PTA, a different site may be chosen.
A different site or a different date?
A different site and a different date, maybe.
And/or.
Yes, thank you. And/or maybe chosen.
I was an English major.
Yeah, we actually litigated.
I was never an English major. Jim.
Yeah, I had a Supreme Court decision on the meaning of and/or. And/or a different, date and time.
If everyone on the board is okay and understands why such.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. I apologize, Mr. Kim.
Okay, the second, from the Palisades Park Recreation Department, Family Fun Day, and then I kind of spoke with a person, whether it's an issue. I should say, if it starts raining because it's outfield, they might want to cancel it, but no, there's no rain date set up yet as of today. I guess if it starts raining, it's going to cancel. But scheduled to be on Sunday, April 30th, between noon and 5 p.m. That's what I have.
I think we have rain in the forecast for the weekend.
Yes.
We'll change it, who knows?
So should we have similar language contingent upon weather permitting or something like that?
Weather permitting,
Good idea.
it's still going
Okay.
on.
Good idea.
Yep.
But is it first time to bring up for the
Yeah, I
board
think so, yes.
approval?
This one
Is
is,
it possible that they can announce in public for board approval, because they sent out all the public messages last week, I received the email, and they announced it in this town hall meeting this Monday, but I didn't remember that we have approved, so.
I think they are just seeking the use of the field. This is not a school-run event, but what I can tell you is, regardless, to the point, the weather may be a factor. Clearly, we would disseminate information regarding a cancellation and/or rain date as soon as we know.
Well, town rec would
They
decide
would
that
have to decide
information,
that,
right?
recreation.
Yeah, that's not on us.
This
Yes,
is
sir.
gonna be a
Most
first.
of this is in the roadway, the food trucks all line up in the roadway there, and the park.
Where the dumpsters are?
Yeah,
In the back.
and
God bless you.
the street, along the street.
So it's not necessarily on the field?
None of the vehicles usually go on the street, on the field.
Is it at the back of the field, Joe, by Roth Avenue?
It's right by the doors for the, to the boiler room and
Yep,
around the curve.
yep.
That's where they usually have it.
Okay.
So
So I think this can be a conditional approval depending on weather and other factors.
Right.
But just to make sure for the right procedure, that has to be board approval first usually, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing they put on the field is usually a bounce and stuff like that.
Right,
Correct.
Moved by Anthony Kim, is there a second?
I'll second.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
remember there was, last year, there was like a junior police academy starting from June 19th.
Yes.
So it was in the April's minute. So how about this year? Was there any?
No one has
application
come to
for
me
that?
yet about such a request.
That
They
probably.
did not come to me yet.
Okay, roll call please.
Yoon Min,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Ellen John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes?
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yes.
Okay, next one, personnel, Ms. Agnieszka Garcia.
We have 4 items on consent agenda. The first is appointment of substitute teacher. The second is change in teacher status. There were certifications that this individual was waiting on that have now been obtained. The third is approval approval for summer school principals. Those duties will be shared this year. Fourth is approval for clinical placement requests. These are college students, and they don't get paid for this. This is part of their clinical training, and those are the three individuals. So I'd like a motion for approval.
Okay, second on that,
Second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yunmin,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Helen John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes.
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next one, is the curriculum, Rebecca Lee is not here, so co-chairman William Kim, can you do that?
Looks like we have 9 items consent agenda today. 8 of them are field trips, and number 1 is the school calendar. So, number 1, it just looks like 23-24 school year will start for students on the 7th or 8th and end on June 18th. 2 is the American Museum of Natural History field trip for English and Science. 3, I cannot pronounce that, but it's Theater and Segovia Restaurant for Spanish 3 and AP Spanish students. 4 and 5 are both Van Park for different grades. 4 being for pre-K and kindergarten, 5 being for 4th grade. 6 is Boulders baseball for the 2nd grade class. 7 looks like a bowling trip to Bolero and Fairlawn for 3rd grade. And then number 8 is Northern Valley Old Japan for the Lindbergh School Band. Number 9, the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum in New York for the 5th and 6th grade chorus. Move to approve consent agenda 1 through 9 and curriculum.
Any second on that?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Calendar,
Yes.
the spring break on April is very early, like the very first 2 weeks.
Yes.
Starting April 1st. It's just because we usually stick to the Good Friday, and
So-
Good Friday is the main
So
March.
that's not necessarily a consideration, it's a good point. I think that's been the tradition, but it wasn't the factor in why the committee selected it. I think we considered many of things, Ms. Chung. One of them, most importantly, I thought, was our surrounding districts are also going with that same week. And when we transport some of our out-of-district special needs students, we wanted to be consistent with our employees who transport. So that was a big consideration. This year, we did not have the same week. And when we had our break, our employees were still driving students. So we wanted to be mindful of that this year.
Okay. And then June,
Yes,
last year, if you remember, that some parents really complains about that the half day before
the 5 days before.
Yeah, 5
Yes.
days before the ending
That is correct.
of the year was not really reflected in the calendar, so they had trouble with finding caregivers. So-
Absolutely right. So what I've done in the last 2 years, as you can see, under June 18th, there's an asterisk, and it says the last 5 days are half days. With that being said, there is also mention here that we will decide when our graduation is in March next year. I want to do it 1 month earlier to give families a little bit more notice. So, as I mentioned earlier in my report, high school graduation, I believe I said, was June 21st. If you go back 5 days from there, 5 school days, keep in mind, we have Juneteenth that we are honoring this year. The last 5 days of school will be half days. So although I cannot determine what the last 5 days are just yet, the last 5 days
Okay.
will be half days.
Okay, I missed this part.
That's okay. That's a good point, though.
So next year, we are not
Yes.
celebrating Juneteenth?
So Juneteenth next year, I believe, is
It's not.
later in the year.
Right, well, it would be the 19th, so the
Right,
school would
so
be
it's
closed.
so let end.
That is
Right,
correct.
Right, so it wouldn't,
That is correct.
yeah.
Number 7, the bolero, the Pharaoh is the bowling place, right?
You wanna go? My son has a baseball game there right now. Take me. Yes, that is the bowling place.
So number 9, I just wondering how does they make a trip to the another high school? It's for like
Number 9 is the Intrepid.
number 8.
Number 8, Northern Valley, Old Japan?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Is it for the trip of
That is the band, the Lindbergh School Band. There is a performance in the school.
Okay.
No problem.
Any discussion? If not, roll call please.
Yunman,
Yes.
Aniesco Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Helen John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes.
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yes.
Okay, next one would be negotiation, Kevin name.
Yeah, in negotiation, we don't have any concerning agenda to reserve.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lim. Next one, policy, Aniesca Garcia.
We have 2 items on consent agenda. They are an update to policy 6164.1. This is in reference to referral services, and the board has to adopt the model that the district uses. The model that we currently use is response to intervention. The other option is multi-tiered system of support, but what the district uses right now is the RTI, which is response to intervention, meaning if a parent requests for an evaluation or if a teacher notices concerns, they make a referral to child study. So that is the model that we use. The multi-tiered system of support, just so we know what the difference is, means that every student would have to be evaluated, and we just don't have the resources to evaluate every single student. So the model that we use currently is the RTI, response to intervention, and we just have to designate in our policy, update it to indicate what model we use.
And the reason, if I can elaborate, please, we were just CUSAC'd by the Department of Education. This was a recommendation by way of that, I guess, investigation, finding. This is not a corrective action. It was guidance. It was suggestion and recommendation by them. And we want to cooperate and obviously make our schools and policies better. Thank you.
Thank you. So I make a motion for approval?
Second on that,
Second.
okay, any discussion? Roll call please.
Yunman,
Yes.
Aniesco Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Helen John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes.
Anthony Kim,
Yes.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next one would be, New Jersey School Board, liaison.
I don't have reports or any things to approve.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. Next one is, County School Board, rep and alternate, Helen John.
Yeah, nothing to report this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Now we go into old business. Happens very much with the old business.
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Mr. Shin does have something.
In March, as the school security getting more important, we discussed about starting of the school security committee. And we discussed about that, and we said that we would start like from this month, but strangely there's nothing about this, so I'd like to know what happened and what will be happened.
So I was in touch with the chief of the police department, obviously with everything happening with the fire department. That I think is also a security and safety committee in light of what just happened. Many teachable moments came of the last few days. We are planning for a meeting with board members that are on the committee in the next week or so. And I'm hopeful that at the May meeting, there will be a report.
And also just for all the board members, NJSBA is having a school safety seminar on June 9th for anyone who wants to participate.
Excellent, thank you.
So
Thank you.
so we have the committee. and
Yes.
Who is the committee chair?
I'm
Was
the
that
chair.
Ms. Garcia, and I think Ms. Chung is on the committee.
No, I didn't.
You not?
I haven't actually.
I need to check it,
There
but
haven't been any meetings. We're trying to coordinate with the police department to just see what can be done. So there haven't been
Yeah,
any
but
meetings.
I would
That's
like
the
to
report.
open
the
and
chairman-
create the
I'm
So
sorry.
there is
last
no the
December,
police
and then
officer
I
involvement
haven't
yet,
heard.
we'd like to, start.
Right, yes.
Start our tales, what do we have to do, okay?
Thank you for reminding us. And chairman of the faith committee is Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
and co-chairman is Anthony Kim. Okay? So
I
we
will-
upgrade if we find any.
I will definitely advise you in the next week or so. I have been in touch with, Chief Espino. We will be having a meeting
Okay,
rather soon.
great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, so we'll go into new business. Ms. Dr. Zurilo.
So I have 3 items. I'm gonna ask that we approve these individually. The first one, as I mentioned in my report, would be that during the primary day on June 6th, 2023, I'm going to ask the board to consider a half-day schedule for faculty, staff, and students.
Okay. May I have a motion for that? Can I have a motion?
I make a motion for approval.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I'm just curious, have there been any incidents in the past, and is it just an abundance of caution?
This is being so proactive that I'm not
Okay.
waiting for a problem to
Okay,
happen.
all right, fair enough.
I can tell you wholeheartedly that during election days in our schools, not only are we trying to deal with educating our children, but there has been much hoopla, it might be the best word to
Right.
describe everything that goes on around our buildings.
Right,
And then you bring in the public, the
Right.
community. We don't know who they are. We have a no visitor policy.
right,
This is an extreme abundance of caution to get in a half day and get everyone home in a safe, sound manner.
okay.
Not yet, that was number 3. So we have a motion, we have a second.
Right, so roll call.
Roll call, please.
Yunman,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.
Sue Chung,
Yes.
Alan John,
Yes.
Kevin Lim,
Yes.
Anthony Kim,
Yep.
William Kim,
Yes.
Charlie Shin.
Yes.
Second, I'm going to ask the board to consider the request as done in many previous years, during the New Jersey SLA testing at the junior, senior high school, during the dates of May 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. A delayed opening for students who are not testing on those dates.
Can we just, would it, I just wanna make sure it's clear, like, what grades, because,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean, it's just vague.
So
the way
memos
it is.
are sent home to the students who will be required to report at regular time.
Okay, and then
And
everyone else is.
obviously, everyone else is
at 10.
advised that they come in at delayed opening time, yes.
Okay,
Just for high school.
Just
Right,
high school,
correct.
just junior, senior high school, because of the, rotating schedule, because we don't have, grade levels that all report to one section, and you have a rotation, the purposes of the testing and the confidentiality, it is just a major task and undertaking that we wanna ensure, that it is done
can I
properly.
just ask, are we gonna have then extra hours for the crossing guards, cause that's crucial for the delays?
So at the junior, senior high school, I wish we had more crossing guards. That's something that I would ask you to bring up to the chief when we meet next
Okay,
week.
because we need the guards for the late walkers.
Please bring that up, because I had that conversation today
Okay.
with them.
Okay,
Okay.
Good point.
So can I have a motion for that?
I make a motion for approval.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yunman,
Yes.
Agnieszka Garcia,
Yes.